Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Right, Renault, where the hell do I start with this one? I mean, really? There was a lot of hype over the winter about how they could well be challenging the top three teams, and if Red Bull struggle with Honda, they might even break into the top three in the championship. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of people predicting that would happen. As it turned out though, they were absolutely nowhere near. Since returning to F1 as a full-time constructor, Renault have shown improvement year on year, and given their resources, you'd have expected to see the same in 2019. I personally didn't think they would make the top three, but I did say pre-season that I thought they might be able to pick up the odd podium or two. And you know, I think it's all of that that makes this season feel all the more disappointing. And yeah, I know you should never listen to pre-season hype, but given again that year-on-year improvement, I don't think it was at all unreasonable to expect more from them. And it's not the drivers, by the way, I've got to say this. They went big by snatching Daniel Ricciardo from Red Bull, and they stuck with experience with Nico Hulkenberg. As in team experience, he gave them some continuity. For me, they on paper had one of the best lineups on the grid. One of the best lineups on the grid. So the car has got to have been the issue, surely, and probably more specifically the chassis. It is so hard to pick out any positives of Renault, and believe me, I am trying. But not only did they appear to lack speed at times, they also lack consistency, and to a lesser extent than previous seasons, reliability as well. They were also comfortably beaten to the best of the rest title by their only customer team, McLaren, a team who were really nowhere near them last year, and they were only 6 points clear of Toro Rosso. That would have been the ultimate kick in the gut if they'd been beaten by both Honda teams and a customer team this season. Actually, I'll tell you what it feels like. It feels like everyone else has made progress and Renault have just stood still. I know they haven't, but that's just the best way to describe how I would sum it all up. The year also came with controversy, of course, thanks to the whole preset lap distance dependent brake bias adjustment system thing, thank you very much, which in the end saw them thrown out of the final result of the Japanese Grand Prix. Just a shocker of a season, pretty much from top to bottom. Having said all of that though, they did still finish in 5th place, and they did score at 13 out of the 21 races. You might have noticed, but like I said a moment ago, I'm really trying to find the positives, and to be fair, there were times when the car looked to have some really solid raw speed, especially in a straight line when you look at their impressive performances at Monza and their very strong weekend in Canada. Which, by the way, was really good to see because we're so used to seeing that power unit struggle in a straight line. Don't get me wrong, we didn't see anything overly spectacular, but it was solid at times. I would also absolutely definitely say that their second half of 2019 was far better than their first half, and that has given them a really good foundation to build off for next year. And next year is a big year for Renault. I will probably talk about this more in a later video, but I do think that this season has put some serious doubts over their long-term future in Formula 1. I don't think many would argue against the fact that they have got to do better in 2020. Otherwise, honestly, I wouldn't be all that surprised to see them walk away again. As I've already said, and will probably say multiple times before the end of this video, I do find it very difficult to put much, if any, blame at the driver's doors. When the car has been underneath him, if you like, Daniel Ricciardo has delivered the results, as you would expect, really. I really do feel like he absolutely extracted the maximum he could from that car over the course of the season. You look at his stats, 54 points, 9th in the championship, and he comfortably beat Hulkenberg as well. 14-7 in quali, 12-7 in the races, and he outscored him by 54-37. I can't lie, looking at in particular that quali battle, I was actually quite surprised by how comfortable Ricciardo has been over him. And if nothing else, that shows that Renault were absolutely right to snap him up for 2019. Now, whether or not it was right for Ricciardo to make the switch, I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, it's very easy to say that Ricciardo made a huge mistake by leaving Red Bull. But I remember last summer, the popular opinion seemed to be that Honda would be terrible, and so moving to Renault may well have been the right call for the Aussie. So at the time, I guess it made a lot of sense to a lot of people. I've already touched on it, but his drives in Canada and Italy were surely the highlights of his season. And he just proved that he hasn't lost any of his speed in the last year, which quite frankly I never expected him to, but it is still worth a mention. Ricciardo is one of the drivers that I've really felt for at times this season, actually for much of it. You're so used to seeing him smiling and being quite, full of the banter with the press and whatnot, but he's looked properly deflated at times this year, and there is no doubt whatsoever that he has given absolutely everything in 2019 and has been let down by the team. And on that, I really do believe that if that chassis had been better, and you pair that with the performances we've seen from Ricciardo this year, they could well have ended up best of the rest at the absolute worst. But obviously that is pure speculation and we're never going to know. I'm trying not to turn this into a gossip video, however, 2020 is a huge year for Ricciardo. If that car is still not good enough and he has to endure some of the lows he's had to at times this season again, then with seats potentially opening up with the top three teams for 2021, he may well be off. I still think he's absolutely a class act and a top quality driver, so if Renault can't deliver next year and he wants to move on, there is no doubt in my mind he will have more than a couple of options for the following year. Now, I've got a video planned for Nico Hulkenberg later in December, so I'm going to try and avoid talking too much about him leaving F1 and just focus on his season. So, in all honesty, I am really frustrated with him. Once again, for the millionth time in this video, I do not for 1 second put the blame wholly on the drivers. I just can't do that. If that car was better, I have no doubt whatsoever that both drivers would have delivered the results. However, much like the team, I expected more from him, I really did. I certainly at the very least thought he would have been much closer to his teammate. You know, don't forget he's been at this team since 2017, and so you would have expected him to find his feet more quickly than Ricciardo, the new boy. The thing is though, and I've kind of want to defend him a little bit here, the teammate battle doesn't really tell the full story because although he was beaten, there's no denying that, Hulkenberg wasn't all that far behind the Aussie with an average qualifying gap of just under 0.08 of a second. The point I'm making is that it's not like he was being absolutely smashed every Saturday. You probably already know my biggest frustration with Nico, and that is, of course, Germany. How close was he to that first podium? I was so frustrated watching that. I'm sure many of you were as well. He was on for that podium, and at the end of the day, he made the mistake, put himself in the wall and out of the race. I was so gutted for him. It's the only way I can put it. And it was at that moment where I genuinely thought to myself, this guy is never going to get a podium. And by the way, I'm not going to lay into him because of that error, because that race in Germany was just pure chaos, and even Lewis Hamilton went off at that corner, although he did continue. But if the likes of Hamilton can make that mistake, then anybody can. Looking through his results from 2019, he did go on a really solid point-scoring run between Belgium and the USA, obviously losing his Japan point thanks to that disqualification, but ultimately he still brought it home in the points. Look, as you can probably tell, other than repeating the fact that I've been really disappointed with this season, I honestly don't know what more to say. It is a real shame to see him finish potentially his final season in F1 so far off his teammate on paper, but despite my own personal frustration with this season, there have still been some reminders as to why Hulkenberg is so highly rated in the F1 paddock. I just really wish he had the chance to bounce back next year and show us all that he's still got it. Maybe we'll see him back in the future, who knows. To very quickly summarise all of that though, I won't slap too much of the blame. I think I've mentioned this on the drivers, but equally, as poor as things have been for Renault this year, it hasn't all been doom and gloom. Alright, their chassis has been a real letdown, but there is definitely some solid raw speed in that power unit, which is one of the few positives they can take from this season, and as I've already said, that gives them a really decent point to build from for 2020. However, as good as that is, as big of a positive as that is, that doesn't rescue their season, and to be perfectly honest, they should have been comfortably topping that midfield this year. Huge year for that team in 2020. That is it then for this video, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts on Renault's season down in the comments section. And just a very quick reminder, these are not supposed to be season reports or season reviews, nothing like that. It's just me chatting to you guys, waffling on, and letting you know how I think each team and each driver has got on in 2019. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.